right, so it is go time here for the Battle of Monocacy Junction. Matt just talked to you about several thousand Confederate troops under the command of Stephen D. Ramseur, his full division moving into here, the Best Farm, July 9th, 1864. They are occupying the structures around you, some that are still here today, some that are definitely not because of this battle and other reasons over time. But what are the moments that we're talking about, the opening of fighting here? Matt's going to take you through some of that, but what we're really talking about is the beginning of a day of themes.
Correct.
There are two very simple themes here during the Battle of Monocacy Junction on July 9th, 1864. You have a theme on the Confederate side of the battlefield here where they're not really expecting this fight to be much. They are not looking to commit to a general engagement. Perhaps one of the reasons why small unit tactics take precedent here. There's no intention of committing to these mass infantry assaults. On the Federal side, the theme here is stubborn. The presence here is only 75 to 100 skirmishers that Ramseur initially runs into. But several hours later, this position has not been carried. In fact, several hundred more skirmishers have arrived from the United States troops, federal troops, and they have sort of put this at a temporary stalemate, which is going to set the rest of the motion in battle. I did reference how this sort of, the Best Farm becomes this kind of pivot point where we start to go from north to south, transitioning into an east and west. And why do these themes exist, Matt? Well, with the Confederate, I don't know how to accurately describe it, but they have no interest in a general engagement here. What are they expecting here other than the 100 days, man? Are they expecting only a couple thousand, a couple hundred? Like, what is the lack of determination for an engagement coming from?
So, Pat, where that comes from is the fact that the Confederates don't think they're going to be running into any real serious resistance. Even with the fighting they've had up at Jug Bridge, they think that they're only going to be running into militia. And so Stephen Dotson Ramseur does not want to necessarily deploy his entire division into line of battle. In additionally, you guys saw these sweeping landscapes around Best Farm. What artillery the Federals do have, which open up around 9 a.m., could actually hammer these open fields pretty well. And Ramseur doesn't know exactly how many guns are out there on the ridge to the south of us. So he wants to cut these guys out of the way as quickly as possible. To do that, he is going to throw forward these skirmishers and sharpshooters, and he thinks he's just dealing with militia that he'll be able to push out of the way pretty quickly and pretty aggressively. However, we have had some movements on the Federal side.
And that brings us to the stubbornness theme, right? So the expectation is the majority of these federal troops, these U.S. troops, are on the southern side of the Monocacy River, and they are.
Right.
But what we don't realize is that these aren't just the 100 days men that they are expecting. This isn't just a couple hundred of them as they might be expecting, perhaps only a regiment or so. Perhaps they've even expected that the fighting that has sort of stymied them over at the Jug Bridge is where they're going to experience whatever they're going to experience. But that stubbornness on the U.S. side really begins to rear its head here because they slowly realize these are not just the 100 days, man. These are not just a few local militia that are here. Matt, who is here on the federal side of the Army that is going to create this day-long headache for Jubal Early, Ramseur, and other division commanders?
Major General Lew Wallace, the commanding officer here at Monocacy, has been reinforced. Come to find out, by July 5th, Grant has been notified down near Petersburg and Richmond of this threat to Maryland and the national capital. And he has ordered the 6th Corps to extract itself from the lines of Petersburg, march down to City Point, and they begin to take steamships down the James and up the Chesapeake Bay all the way to Baltimore. Brigadier General James Ricketts with the 3rd Division, 6th Union Corps will be in the lead, and his men will reach Baltimore and are shifted out here to Monocacy Junction via train.
What's interesting about this, though, is, Matt, is Monocacy Junction their destination? When they are riding out here, is the goal to get here or the goal to get somewhere else?
That's a great point, Pat, because they actually have been ordered to Harper's Ferry. That's the last place that we have confirmation of the Confederate presence. We have the federal garrison at Harper's Ferry, so it was a natural place to send the troops from 3rd Division, 6th Corps. Ricketts, however, would pause here at Monocacy Junction on the night of July 8th into the 9th. Some of his men have already been coming into the area. The trains need to be watered. They need to get additional coal, so it's a good spot to stop to resupply, and it would be there that Ricketts and Wallace would converse. Wallace lets him know the gravity of the situation, and James Ricketts agrees to detrain his forces and add them to Wallace's command, bumping up federal troop strength here to about 6,600 men. 3,300 of these 100 days inexperienced troops, about 3,500 federal veterans. Guys from, again, the 3rd Division, 6th Corps.
Guys who have just been on the overland campaign.
Right.
Guys who have been in this army for several years at this point, whether they were in the Washington garrison, like a lot of the heavy artillery units that are going to be a part of our story, or whatnot. But you got to realize those 3,300 men carry the value of perhaps additional men. I mean, when you've experienced this combat and you know what's coming, that's what makes Jubal Early's force so powerful and such a threat. It's 12,000. Again, one of the things we've covered at the beginning of this was that there's always been this disparity in numbers. Is it 15,000? Is it 18,000? And Matt has been clear since day one of our podcast. It's maybe 12,000, if only a little more. But they're all grizzled veterans. I mean, at this point in the war, there is almost no portion of that force that hasn't been in a major fight. And so when the U.S. version of those same type of troops arrive here, it dramatically changes the situation. So those troops are the stubborn thing that the Confederates are going to run into. And to give credit to some of our 100 Days men in this fight, they're going to mirror what's around them, and they're going to put up some valiant fights. But it's a day of themes, stubbornness on the U.S. side to just not give up as things are going wrong around them, not giving ground, and it's a day of lackluster committal. And I don't know how I want to categorize it other than Jubal Early has no intention of drawing on a general engagement here.
Correct.
So it just happens that it's just and the Federals are fighting.
And part of the reason is Jubal Early's not even on the battlefield. He won't reach this field until probably around 11:30 in the morning. Because where is he, Pat?
He's down getting some money. Get that cake.
That's right.
Bread.
He is in Frederick ransoming the city. We're going to talk about that in some detail later, but Jubal Early and his command, his headquarters, is all in Frederick at the time. He believes Ramser's got it. He's going to punch through here at the bridges and open up the route to Washington on the Georgetown Pike. Ramser is going to run into some serious resistance here at the Best Farm and near Monocacy Junction in the distance. What Pat was saying in regards to the veteran troops, we do have elements of the 100 Days men out here with the 1st Maryland Potomac Home Brigade, but also elements of the 9th New York Heavy, the 106th Ohio Infantry, also have some of their skirmishers out here. There are a number of very good units that are already making their presence known right here on Best Farm, and they're going to use the terrain here to their advantage. Not only are they giving ground grudgingly across these fields, but they're going to fall back into the railroad cut, which is just behind us here, utilizing it almost like a trench, eventually falling back down the cut towards the junction itself and close to a pair of blockhouses, small wooden forts that help guard the bridge. So there are some defensive works around the bridge, but it is due to the defense of these bridges and the stubbornness of these troops that Ramser will not be breaking through quickly, and we're going to see this fight drag on throughout the morning, eventually forcing a complete change of place here at Monocacy.